Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the July 3rd, 2024 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda today, there are speaker request forms to the left of the dais. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the secretary. At this time, we would also like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. The public hearing on item number 1, approval of the June 6, 2024 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting minutes, is hereby opened.
Move approval of the minutes.
All right, Karen made the motion to approve the minutes,
Second.
and Vince seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion over the approval of minutes? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2.
Good morning, Chair and Commission. Cassie Hayes, current planning. Item number 2 before you is a variance request to reduce the rear yard setback for a shed from 5 feet to 0 feet. This property is located on East St. Charles Street. It is 0.26 acres of property currently zoned medium density residential district. Future land use of this property is urban neighborhood. And this does sit on a corner lot on East St. Charles Street and also Lincoln Avenue. What the applicant is proposing to do is, as you can see on this drawing up here, there is an existing shed up here on his property that is 10 by 20 feet currently. It was built in 1965 per Department of Equalization records, and it does sit 0 feet from the property line on a concrete slab. What he is proposing to do is he is proposing to remove this shed and replace it with a new shed. So this shows you a picture of the shed as it exists today and that concrete slab underneath it. He is proposing to replace it with a newer shed that looks like this. The newer shed would be larger. It would be 12 by 24 in size, so it does increase the square footage of the shed by about 88 square feet. The shed as it exists now is considered legal non-conforming because of the year that it was put there. However, by code, a legal non-conforming structure can't be enlarged or expanded upon without being brought into conformance with the zoning requirements or a variance being obtained, which is why he's going through this process. He has indicated that the location of the shed provides a barrier to prevent foot traffic from the alleyway that enters into his yard. His property is bordered on 3 sides by roadways. That south side is an alleyway, and that's where he does get access to his shed from. Building Services did comment on this request that there is no hardship that has been indicated, and that placing a new structure 0 feet from the property line would create some current building code issues with regard to separation and fire standards. The fire department commented that approval of the building official should be obtained because the proposed new shed may require a firewall on that lot line side. And then engineering commented that there are no city utilities in that area, but they would recommend that enough room be left between the property line and the structure to be able to construct and maintain it without encroaching onto the neighbor's property. So this is an elevation of what his new structure will look like. This would be the front elevation. These are some site photos. His current shed. As you can see, there are some stairs and there's a gate behind that tree right there. There's a gate right here that provides access to his yard. This is looking at the property line between him and his neighbor. This is looking from the Lincoln Avenue side into the rest of his yard right here, and a little bit closer view. And this is the alleyway where he gets access to that shed from. So ultimately, staff did review this with regard to the criteria for a variance request, and staff is at this time recommending denial of the variance to reduce the rear yard setback based on there are no special circumstances or conditions which would warrant approval of the request. There appears that there could be adequate area on the property to place a new shed where the minimum setback requirements could be met. Reasonable use of the land exists without granting the variance, and granting the variance does not appear to be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the Rapid City Municipal Code. I will stand for questions, and the applicant is here as well, and I believe would like to speak.
Thank you. Eric Heikus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is pretty simple. So you've got the sidewalk with the stairs, and there's a space between the shed and that fence. Would that remain, that space? Would that space remain? I guess would there still remain a gap between the sidewalk edge and the edge of shed?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Vicky.
I think maybe the applicant can speak to that.
Okay.
If they expand this, they would still be on that 0 lot line,
Okay.
but they would expand farther to the west.
Oh, I see it, okay.
yeah.
I got it,
Yeah.
I'm flipped around. So
And I-
the
and I-
sidewalk is on, okay.
And
Gotcha.
Mr. Chair, if I may, so the building official who recommended that this be denied was very concerned with the codes that this creates, not only on this property, but if the property next door should ever want to expand, to have that 0 setback creates building issues for that property owner. And while we can appreciate that he wants to continue to use the slab, he could use a part of it. It would just be moving it over that 5 feet from that east lot line. It would still let him use a part of that concrete, just pour some additional concrete, and then the larger shed, which he has a beautiful elevation of what he's proposing.
This photo helps me, thank you.
Kelly?
Yeah, that was kind of along the line, thank you, Mr. Chair, along the lines of the question that I was asking, and the drawing really wasn't too clear, but is the intent to capture that space where the cinder blocks are? That would be part of the footprint of the building. And second question is, if he cannot, is this clarification, he cannot build on the same footprint as the existing building, correct? Okay. Thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Vicky?
the applicant is in the audience. I think it would be good to hear from him as to what his intent is and if he could move it over.
You bet. Can I ask for one little piece of clarification ahead of that? Being this is a corner lot, maybe you could go to a plan view and identify side, rear setbacks, like which is which.
Oh, yes, I had that question too. So when they're adjacent to, on a corner lot, they get to pick their front and the opposite is the rear. When I look at this, because it's elongated lot, that should be a side yard, not a rear yard. But if they pick Lincoln Avenue as their front yard, and they can, then the rear is the opposite lot line. So this could have been advertised as a 0 side yard setback or a 0 rear yard setback. In
Is-
essence, they're just trying to maintain that same footprint.
Is there any difference to the setback requirement, side or rear?
If the shed is more than 90 feet from the front of the lot, then the side yard setback is 5 feet, and then the rear yard setback is always 5 feet. I would guess that this is setting back 90 feet, so it should be about the same setback for both.
Okay. Thank you. If the applicant would like to address us, we'd like to invite you up to do that. Once you're up, if you could just identify yourself for our records.
Good morning, Rapid City. My name is Gene Plache. I'm the owner of the said property here. There is a new bit of information that I would like to add to this that is not in our records currently today, and that is they just added a gas line from the alley to the house with a directional bore machine underneath the yard. And where it is, I got 2 trees there, they're older ones, that I put my hammock in there. And right now, that current gas line is between that far east tree and the sidewalk and goes up to the southeast corner of the house. If I was to move that shed 5 foot to the west, I will be right on top of that. All my electrical, cable, telephone, everything is overhead from the power line out in the alley to the house on that situation right there. So just an update with that, with the utilities, because there was a statement here on page 5, I believe, section 2, with the city utilities in the area.
Could I ask a favor? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Maybe you can help him draw the approximate location. There's a tool that they can help show that.
Okay,
Are the two trees sort of to the southeast of the trampoline in the picture?
yeah, see, there's one tree right there. It's right there. That gas line is between that tree and the sidewalk and goes up underneath to the corner of the house.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt your.
That's fine. One of the situations was, and I read this here also on with the fence, if I moved it 5 foot this way, just put up a chain link fence, you'll be fine. Well, I'm a truck driver and I usually am out of state, or if I have a short run, I'm in state. I leave my house at 3 a.m. in the morning, and there's been several times I've opened the door at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I've had people jumping over my chain link fence and going through my neighbor's yard, jumping over their chain link fence. There's only been one that we know, he'll wire open the back gate, so when he runs out the back gate, he'll hang a left and run down the alley. This shed, I believe, has helped to keep the foot traffic out. They had it down at one point where my wife would take my son to school. They were coming up through that back gate during broad daylight at 8 in the morning and checking our doorknobs. That is one of the primary reasons that I would like to keep that shed there. It does help. Another financial hardship part of this is, as you can see on those photos, with that concrete slab and the way the back stairs and the concrete and everything, if I move that building 5 foot to the west, I'm gonna have to redo all of that. And I'm just guessing in my mind, it's gonna go up from the price on that shed that is on the paper from, what was it, 8,000? I believe it was. I figure just a rough guesstimate, about 5,000 to 7,000 in price just to move all that concrete, redo the sidewalk. Yes, there we go. Yeah, we got 80, well, that's current as of June, whenever that was printed. Prices of lumber fluctuates up and down, so that could vary. But there's a expense there that's gonna go up. I'd like to use the pre-existing concrete and the stairs and everything, just to keep the cost down on that. And if I was to move it to the west, and this is the other part, I can put up the chain link fence, but what am I gonna do with a 5 foot by 24 strip of grass? I can't play with the kids back there. I can't store anything there because it will get up and walk away. I don't know if, I believe in one of these photos, two of my neighbors put up 6 foot board fences all the way around to keep the riffraff out. And even yesterday, when Kathy had called me to inform that not all members would be here today, there was individuals of questionable characteristics walking up or down my alley to the east. And I was like, I'd really like to see that shed stay in that position if I could. And I'm asking to reconsider with what I've read here. I'm open to any questions.
So just for clarification for me, the proposed new shed 12 by 24, the current one is 10 by 20.
It's more like 13 from the outer edges. It would bring, where that shed is sitting now, if I left it at 0, that shed with the width of 12 foot would bring that back about 1 foot, and it's still.
Toward the proposed 0 foot
Correct.
setback?
Correct.
Okay. That's what I'm trying to sort of in my mind get around. Thank you.
Yes. And the back edge of that concrete slab is where the beginning of the shed would go. I would utilize the full length of that concrete slab.
So in this plan, I'm not sure I'm on directionally, but I think it's the southeast corner of the existing
Correct.
shed. Would you propose to have that remain the southeast corner of the new shed?
Correct.
And the new shed would be located from that point?
From the edge of that concrete wall there where the trash cans are going forward, that'd be a full 24-foot strip of concrete there.
Okay.
Can we change that to there? See where the blue trash cans, that wall that they're butted up against, the edge of that whole block, everything from that wood going north, all that would be gone, and the south edge of that shed would be right on the edge of that concrete. That's where my minimum foot requirement from the alley is at.
Gotcha. Okay. For me, that locates it. Some of the other members might have other questions to ask.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Vicky?
as a friendly reminder, you cannot use financial hardship in consideration of granting or denying a variance. As we're looking at this picture of this shed, when we allow a zero setback, there's no room for a property owner to provide maintenance. And as this existing shed shows, over time, all structures need maintenance. So that becomes an issue. And then I just reiterate, and potentially Chip could chime in too, there are fire concerns when we put a building at a 0 yard setback.
Thank you. Vince?
Actually,
Sorry.
thank you, Chair. Actually, one of my questions is for fire, but first, if I could just ask about this new shed that you're thinking of. Is there going to be an entrance? Can you access that shed like a door from the alleyway?
No, sir.
There won't be an entrance. Okay, thank
It'll
you,
be on the
sir.
north side and the west side.
Okay, thank you, sir. And what was fire's concern, if I could ask?
Let me find you, Chip. Maybe. Can you put a request in? Got it. Maybe.
Yep. Mr. Chair,
Yep, go for it.
the space is important for us from property to property line for a fire, especially when it's a residential structure. But for sheds and other things like this and the way the other property's set up, and I agree with the building official on his comments that he went through with Vicky, but there's a way they could possibly do it, and that's the building official's decision on the type of building material and make it more fire resistant. Make it a 1 hour firewall or 2. I can't remember what it was for this, but we've done the firewalls on some residentials in the older neighborhoods with houses that are close together with the old school days of the decreased lot line side or the side yard setbacks. So there's a way to do this for the person that wants to build a shed where he wants it. And the gas line's an issue. Of course, it's a hardship, I think, he can't build on top of it, so he's kind of stuck with his footprint. Any more questions?
Thank you, sir. No.
I'd like to comment that there is an 18-foot
Yeah.
difference between the east side of that shed to the garage, neighbor's garage, 18 feet.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's a minimum or maximum upon that ruling.
You know, unfortunately, they have the right to build on their lot per the current rules, so the existing is, we don't necessarily have to take that as what will always be. We have to imagine that they may build something else. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hope I'm not going down a rabbit's hole here, but if he were to renovate this shed, would that be a permit process? And would he be able to expand the footprint inboard towards his yard? Or would he even be able to renovate this on the current footprint because it was built back in the 60s?
Vicky?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a legal nonconforming structure. He can improve upon it as long as that improvement is not 50% of the original value of the shed. And back in 65, I think is when it was built, probably was pretty cheap to build the shed. He could not expand the footprint of it or enlarge the encroachment. He could expand in the areas that did meet setback, but not on that east lot line that he's at 0 setback. So in essence, it would be difficult for him to refurbish this and keep it below that 50% original market value of the structure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, this is a tough question. Any other comments? Oh, I don't think you came up. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm not sure about that gas line, where that actually is. I mean, I understand it's between the tree and the sidewalk, but do we not check with the utilities and ask them if it's in the way or not?
Mr. Chair?
Vicky?
It's the applicant's responsibility to show the location of any private utility service lines on their site plans. And I think he did say that that was new.
Yes, ma'am. It
Yeah,
was like
that was
within the
new.
past 2
Yeah.
weeks.
Maybe Cassie could bring up the site plan again. And Karen, to your point, we don't know exactly where that gas line is.
Yeah.
Certainly, it appears that this is a scaled site plan. What might be helpful for you folks if you knew exactly where it was.
Yeah.
Obviously, if that gas line is preventing the shed to be located further to the west, knowing that north is on the left-hand side of your screen, there's still ample area within the yard to put a shed. That might not be the best location for the applicant, but there's other footprints that are very level. This is over 1/4 of an acre in size that would allow that shed to go. Without knowing the actual location of the gas line, it's difficult to know exactly what dimensions you're working with.
Yeah, thank you. So if we could see closer to where that gas, I think that would help us. And then, to me, see if there's a way to do other options, because I hate to grant a variance to put something right on that lot line. That's just sets a precedence that I just hate to see. But I also don't want to be on a gas line. And I think that's a quandary for all of us. And if we could figure out a way that it would work someplace else or some other way, I'd rather see that. So can you show us closer to where that gas line is so we can find
Go back
out
to that
where it
last
is?
photo. Okay, on this one here, if you can see where the gate is, where the gate and that tree, there's probably 18 inches, maybe 2 foot. That line runs directly between that tree and that sidewalk. And go to the next photo. One more. See what we got. Nope, go back. Here's another one here too. You can see where the sidewalk is and the tree. It comes in right underneath pretty much that corner post, close to that corner post of that gate, and comes up as she's drawn the arrow, and it comes underneath the sidewalk, probably like right up in there, and goes up to the corner of the house. And that was just installed here the past week and a half, 2 weeks.
Okay, so it goes, Cassie, can you go back to that same picture with the,
On a site plan, you're probably looking at, this is the gate on the site plan, so you're probably looking at something kind of
Yep,
along that
right up
line.
to there.
okay. So it goes on the other side of the sidewalk and then straight
Yep.
to the house?
Correct, and
Doesn't-
about right in there it comes across up to the house.
Okay. Is there a way that you can do something with the sidewalk? I mean, sidewalk to me is not imperative. You're going to do something with the sidewalk anyway, I would guess. Right there, no?
I'll just leave it there.
Okay. So your idea is then to pull the shed or garage towards the picture person, from that picture?
Correct.
Fold this way?
I just lengthen it like 3 foot one way and 2 foot the other. The width pretty much would be 1 foot shorter on the width, and I just lengthen it. And it would cover that full concrete slab.
Okay, explain the shorter part.
It's in the back. Can you get to the alley picture? This was originally built as a dog kennel, and where this concrete is, there's 3 separate pens in there. The doctor that owned it had a prize-winning black lab named Geronimo that won like 3 years nationals, and he was breeding dogs. This is an original dog kennel. Concrete's falling apart, and when my proposed shed is get rid of all that concrete, everything out of there, and I'm going to extend the back of that shed all the way up to the edge of that concrete where those blue trash cans are. And I would just extend from that edge wall all the way to the north edge of that concrete slab. And if anything, it will shorten the width by 1 foot, because that shed measures 13 foot wide right now.
Not 10 feet, it's 13 feet?
Correct.
Okay. Well, that helps me a little to visualize it. It's trying to grasp what that looks like. And I didn't know you were going to remove the concrete. I kept thinking, how's that gonna-
That back part of those blocks on the back side of that shed, that's all, from that pile of wood going north, all of that will be gone. And that wall will be flush. The shed wall will be flush with the concrete wall there up against those 2 trash cans.
Can you tell us what, if we would deny this, where you would put that shed? You have any idea?
I'd probably have to wait a while longer, get some more estimates, because there's gonna be concrete removal and addition. If I was to move it someplace else, because I couldn't just have the slab back there. I'd have to do some more planning on, like I said, concrete removal and try and figure out something else.
Okay. That's it, thank you.
Haven?
you. This is difficult. I like the way that the proposal for the new shed, it certainly makes the neighborhood, improves the looks in the neighborhood. So I think that's a real positive. But I think, honestly, to approve with the 0 setback is a bad precedent, and I can't support that.
These are tough questions to ask, and you don't have to answer this in any way other than your personal opinion, but is there any way to get enough square footage for you or to have the use of the shed by lengthening this and taking the width in to meet that setback on the side?
I could really use the storage space. I'd really like to have that.
And
That would bring it down to about 8 foot in width.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if these are, again, I don't like to design things from up here, so if you don't have to engage on this if you don't want, but if you made it 30 feet deep and 8 feet,
I see where you're going, yes.
would you be able to come up with something that made the storage space requirements that you have?
That is a thought.
And again, that's nothing that needs to be
Instead of a
answered.
24 footer, like a 26 to a 30 long.
We're just, I don't want to speak for the other members, but we're real, we have to provide, we have to be consistent with all properties, not just your property. And I'm hearing a lot of support for what you want to do, but just fear of that 0 foot setback. I'll let Vince, I can go to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions about those concrete blocks. I can't get a visual. I got a visual of this side of it, the south side. How in the depth? How far do those blocks go north?
Probably about 3 feet.
3 feet?
Maybe 4.
So, and I got another question, maybe staff. When I look at and I'm talking about the concrete slab now, which is the slab that the stairs lead up to, it looks like it goes all the way to the property line. Am I correct?
Cassie, can you go to the aerial?
Yep. Concrete slab is down here.
Mhm.
So what I'm talking about is the slab underneath the shed right now.
Correct.
Does it go all the way up to the property line? The other picture was probably better, Cassie. The one with the blocks in it, the white blocks, that. So those blocks are sitting on a concrete slab that goes all the way to the property line. No? Okay,
His property line is on this side of that,
okay.
his
And-
property line sits somewhere down here.
And then as far as to the east, as it goes up right to the fence line of the neighbor, is that correct?
Correct.
So that, there is a concrete slab. From this picture, it shows me that it's what, 4 feet high? With, it, because it's as high as those blue canisters.
Correct.
So, and that goes all the way up to the neighbor's fence line.
To the east, yes.
Looking out on Google Map, it does look like all of the concrete that you see
Yeah.
is outside the alley and on private property. We ran out and took a street view of it.
Right. Okay. Thanks. Because that's concrete too, right? Because I'm talking about this. Okay.
All right. Other questions or comments? Karen?
Question,
Whoops.
but- Oh, sorry, thanks, Mr. Chair. I don't have a question, but Brooke, do you want to speak? Okay. I'm going to make a motion to deny this based on the fact that there's no special circumstances, that there's ways that something can change to make that happen. And I think there's reasonable use of the land. I like the idea of the new shed. I like the idea that you're trying to improve the area. But I think there's a way, maybe as Eric provided, some way to change the circumstances of that shed, the size of it or the length of it. There's other ways I think that can happen that can still comply with the 5-foot setback. So that's my motion, is to deny based on those criteria.
All right, is there a second to Karen's motion?
Second.
Mike Gallagher seconded that motion from Karen to deny. I would just like to, before we vote on that, I'm sensitive to, I know there's an application fee on this. Is there any benefit, and this is a question for you, Mr. Playcheck, is there any benefit to asking for a continuance to see if there's some other version of this that you'd like us to consider versus what we're considering currently?
The only other consideration, if it went with the 5-foot, is extending it further to the north yet. Would that be approved, possible?
I think that might be permitted, but
Yeah,
Vicky?
I think what the chair is getting at is, while they can't, it doesn't appear that there's support for a 0-yard setback. Potentially, if you could provide a 3-foot setback, which would allow for you to maintain that side of your building, give separation, you would have to put that east wall as a firewall to ensure that you don't cause issues on the adjacent property. Does that work for you and not interfere with the gas line? I think the chair is saying, could you look at other options where you still might need a variance, but you're not asking for that 0 side yard setback?
And it would be at a 3-foot, am I correct in?
Whatever it is that you could come up with, but minimum of 3 for maintenance.
I'm just wondering with shed sizes,
Yeah.
if there's, I don't know these sheds, none of us probably do, whether you can say exactly the size that you want, or if you're governed by, some typical sizes. And that's why I don't want to get into designing this from up here, so to speak. I'm wondering if you want to request this be continued for a couple weeks or whatever the notification requirements are, to investigate that and see if, knowing that we're loath to provide a 0-foot setback for a new structure, if there's another option. I guess that's my question to you, and I
Could
know
we-
it's a tough one to answer.
Could we go with a 3-foot setback firewall and extend it out to 26, 28 foot, depending on financial, going north and south from the edge of the concrete going that way?
Can't guarantee any particular vote, but me personally, that would be much more palatable.
I could work
Yeah.
with that.
And I think we would need to continue at a meeting to have that as a proposal that you're comfortable with, that we can, consider separately.
Mr. Chair?
Vicki?
So based on the way the request was advertised, you do have the authority in this meeting today to reduce the request from 0 foot to 3 foot. Does not require re-advertisement. I will just share that it was very difficult for the applicant to be here today. It puts him in a hardship with his work. I believe you're a truck driver?
I'm an over-the-road truck driver.
My dad was too, I appreciate that. And I think coming back for another meeting is going to be really difficult. So, again, you do have the authority, if it is your desire, to consider granting a variance, but not the 0 foot, require the 3 foot, with a firewall on the east wall, and then he can figure the rest out before he comes in for the building permit.
And when you say figure the rest out, what you're saying is, as it protrudes to the north
Right.
into your yard towards the house, that there probably aren't any, within reason, going to 26 or 28 feet would not get into a setback that would be anything other than a building permit.
If
Am I
you
correct, Vicki?
That is correct, Mr. Chair. If you reduce the rear yard setback to 3 foot for the shed, then all other parts of the shed would have to meet setback requirements.
Okay. Does that make sense to you, Mr.
Yes.
Playcheck? Okay.
3-foot firewall, and I can extend it north further. I just got to determine how far my checkbook will let me to push it to the north.
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
if the motion maker would like to make a revision or a substitute motion, if this lines with her approval, the recently installed gas line does create a special circumstance that does reduce the building envelope in the rear of his property.
I'm sorry. There we go.
Thank you. I do concur with you're saying, and it might be easier if I just withdraw my motion and somebody else make a clearer motion, because I agree with what we're talking about here, and I think that would be best for the applicant and for us both. So I'll withdraw my motion if the seconder would withdraw his second.
Okay. Mike assented to that, so the motion's been withdrawn.
Oh, Mike, sorry, Mike.
Vince?
I'd like to make a motion to approve a 3-foot setback with an east firewall so that the applicant can revisit this with the city.
All right.
Due to the special circumstances on the new gas line that was put in.
Okay. All right. Vince made the motion as stated, and Brooke seconded that motion, correct? Yes. Okay. Eric Heikus, discussion on the motion?
No, I was about to make a replacement motion, so it's already been done.
All right. Any other discussion on the motion? Haven?
It may be just for clarification, then, the proposal is in front of us. So we're denying the proposal, but I guess that's my question. I'm a little confused then. We're really denying the proposal, but then we're also proposing that, yes, we would approve a 3-foot setback with a firewall.
So, Mr. Chair.
Vicki?
So when a variance is advertised, you can't grant more than what was advertised, but you can grant less. He was asking to waive a 5-foot setback. You said no to that. In lieu of that, you're allowing a 3-foot setback. If he had advertised that he wanted to maintain a 3-foot setback, but then in the meeting said, you know what, I really want a 0 setback, you couldn't grant that unless it was advertised. And it's just a part of letting the neighbors know what's going on so that they have a voice in the matter if they believe that difference would have an impact on them. In this case, you're not granting the 0 side yard or rear yard setback. You are requiring that that he provide a 3-foot setback. It's too early in the morning for math.
All right, is everyone clear on the motion to approve a 3-foot setback? Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for your time today.
Now, I have to come and reapply for a new building permit for the different,
Just visit with Cassie,
Okay.
and she'll get you lined up on that.
will do. Thank you.
All right, that's the last item on zoning board of adjustment. I'd look for a motion to adjourn zoning board. Okay, Vince made the motion. And Karen seconded that motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we'll now commence the Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for July 3rd, 2024. I don't see anybody left in the audience that would turn in an application to speak, so I'll skip that part, and we'll just go to the consent calendar. Items 1 through 4 have been placed on the consent calendar today and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the city council. The city council will make the final decision. Are there any items 1 through 4 that staff would like removed today?
You know, I think we're going to pull item 4 and ask Kip to give a brief presentation.
Okay. Any items 1 through 3 that any planning commissioner would like removed? And any items 1 through 3 that any audience member would like removed? No? Okay. All right, the chair would then entertain a motion to approve items 1 through 3 in accordance with staff's recommendations.
Motion to approve items 1 through 3 and in accordance with the staff's recommendations.
All right, is there a second to Vince's motion? Brooke made the second. Any discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4, Kip.
Good morning, Chair and Commission. Kip Harrington, Long Range Planning Manager. Before you today is the Rapid City Area Transportation Improvement Program for the years 2025 through 2028. This is the draft report. The final will be completed in August. The purpose of the TIP is to outline all of the upcoming transportation projects over the next 5 years, or 4 years in this case. And so what we do is we put together all the state DOT projects, the city projects, the county projects of regional significance, and put those in the TIP. So there's a lot of documentation here talking about the requirements of transportation planning, how we select the products, financial constraints, the funding mechanisms behind those projects, breaking down all of the different funding categories and how those are funded, both for the state and federal funding. New this year, I've changed from pie charts to donut charts. I like donuts a little better, so although we have cookies over there today, no donuts, but they're just a little easier to fit in the document, a little easier to work with on my end, so that's nice for me. And then going through all the projects, and the big thing in here is their project listing. So this is the state project listing. This is their tentative 2025 through 2028 project listing. This is called the STIP, Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. What I'd like to point out is coming up this month, there are 2 different STIP meetings that will be available to be viewed virtually. In the past, STIP meetings have been held in person, generally like at the Ramcota Hotel in this area. People would show up and the DOT staff would give a big presentation. Well, over the years, attendance has seriously declined at those meetings and more people were watching online. So this year, SCDOT has decided that they're going to try something different and just do these completely virtually. So the first opportunity to see the STIP meeting virtually will be on July 16th, which I believe is a Tuesday at 1 p.m. And there is a Zoom link, and we can certainly get that out to you for everybody, or a Teams link maybe, to see that. And then the next opportunity is Thursday, July 18th at 6 p.m. So if you have time in your afternoon or time in your evening, then you can watch the STIP presentation. You'll be able to submit questions virtually, and they will answer those as well. So that's it. A lot of big projects coming up. Some of the highlights, the really big ones we have here. Obviously, the US Highway 16 Katrin Boulevard interchange, that's a very big project. That'll begin in 2026 through 2028. And then the other really, really big project in here is the Exit 63 reconstruction, also known as Duster's Corner, out there at the edge of Box Elder. Currently, it's only a half interchange. If you're familiar with that, you can only get on it one way and off it one way. That does not meet current federal regulations for interstate highways, so that will be completely reconstructed and be built as a diverging diamond interchange, similar to the one on La Crosse Street. And that's like $100 million project, I believe. It's very, very large. And that one's coming up and starting in 2027, and that's probably about a 3-year project to get that one complete. As a side note, we're also currently working with City of Box Elder and Pennington County on Highway 1416 and Raider Hill Road corridor study that was just completed. So that recommends some improvements as well to tie into that new interchange and make 1416 work a little better and ensure the accessibility of Ellsworth Air Force Base for the future. So if you have any questions on the tip, I know there's a lot of information in there. One thing to note, I have to do a little work on this spreadsheet. It's very hard to read, so I'll make it a little bigger. I'm trying to cram a lot of information into a small space. No Box Elder projects are included. They're currently revising their capital improvement program. A lot of staff turnover at Box Elder, so they've got full staff finally, so they're getting their feet wet on this, but they have assured me they will have all their projects in place before our final tip to come in August. So I'm available for any questions.
Thanks, Kip. What are the upcoming large city projects?
So the big one that's going on right now, obviously, is Sheridan Lake Road reconstruction. That's really the major project we have going on. And probably hard for me to see on this, but I can pull up some stuff if you really ask. But really, that's the really significant one. Todd may have some more information that he'd like to share. He's shaking his head no, but that is the most significant. Some other ones that are interesting, I know there's some stuff on Skyline Drive. Getting Skyline Drive will get some work over the next few years. And some other ones, West Main Jackson Boulevard intersection reconstruction. That's a rather large one. That'll be coming up in a few years as well. So those are some of the highlights.
All right, thank you. Eric Hikas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kip, so this is TIP program stuff.
Yep.
Transportation alternatives, is that
Transportation improvement programs. This focuses mainly on roadway projects.
Sure.
We are currently working on a Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan. We were just awarded a grant for that. RFP went out. We have selected a consultant, and I'm currently working on the contract for that. Should have the contract today out to our attorneys. They're the consultant's attorneys, Federal Highway, for everybody to review that. So yeah, that's something we will take a look at. All modes of transportation and safety throughout the community. That'll give us a list of areas that need improvement with recommended improvements. And then that will allow us to apply for an additional grant money or opportunity out of a separate pool of money that's specifically reserved for Safe Streets and Roads for All to build some of those projects.
So transportation alternatives would be a different group of
Yes, if there are transportation alternatives projects, they are listed in here. And so you can, I'm sorry, I missed that. So as you can see in here, it's kind of hard to read on that screen. It's a little blurry. Maybe it's better on yours. Item number 30 is a Box Elder project to construct some sidewalks in 2025. Another Box Elder project in 2026 to construct some sidewalks. I know the City of Rapid City has applied for a few transportation alternative grants lately, but we have not been successful in receiving those. It's a very, very competitive program throughout the state. And in my experience, it has to be shovel ready and has to be at least 50% funded from local, which is more than the required 20% match for it to have a chance to be awarded by the committee that selects these projects.
Very helpful, thank you.
You are welcome.
Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kip, this is very helpful, and I looked through all the information there, and it's hard to read some of those little tiny things.
I'll make that a little bigger in the finals. It's just it didn't translate well in the draft, so.
That's okay. I got the main thing, obviously, which is Catron Boulevard I wanted to see, and it's there. So my question is on something that I didn't see here, and maybe it's in that fine print. The intersection of Campbell and East North Street, is that sometime in the future to redo that intersection right there? You know which one I'm talking about?
That is currently not on the city's 5-year plan.
Okay.
We do have a corridor study in place that identifies some recommended improvements and alternatives for that intersection, but that is really up to the Public Works Department to determine when they want to add that into our capital improvement program.
Okay, thank you, that's it. Thank you, Kip.
Todd, you had a light up? I don't have it anymore, though. Got it.
I was just gonna add that we do have our 5-year plan for our CIP is online on our Public Works website. And I'm not sure if Roger's gonna add to that either.
Roger.
Yes, I was listening in the other room. Thank you, Eric. We do have some other projects coming up. One of them is Wonderland Drive over there is have a major reconstruction. It's the first of 5 phases. That'll be bid later this year. We're being a little trying to be predictive on when we let the big projects out in the city. The bidding climate right now is very difficult. We are seeing a lot of work out at the base, which is definitely impacting our pricing and our contractor availability. We do have a lot of projects going on right now. As he mentioned, the Sharon Lake Road project, obviously the clearest and biggest one. And you have to remember the Catron Boulevard project he mentioned. We also have a Promise Road relocation, and we have parts of those. You know, we have to move water and sewer along with those. We are looking at doing more street rehabs. One that's coming up very quickly is the 7th Street right down here where Summer Nights occurs. If you guys participate in Summer Nights, that'll be happening here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to repave that. We've been working with the contractor, and we put on some pretty strict things, working with Judd Nielsen with Downtown Summer Nights to get that thing put back together. If you've driven it, it's very rough. So we're kind of trying to be a little predictive, I guess is the best word, for when we're letting projects out and stuff like that. And we do have a lot of big projects coming in the future. As you guys know, prices are a challenge. So the other thing Todd mentioned is the CIP map is online. And here in the next few weeks, we're going to put out, we call it the Easy CIP. We're working with our GIS division to put that out on the internet, so you'll be able to go in and look at projects that we have planned in the CIP, and they have little placeholders on them, and you'll be able to click on those placeholders, and it gives a picture and a description of what the project is and what the tentative year is.
That sounds really helpful, Roger.
We're trying. Things take us time. We're getting down the path here a little bit. And we are looking at some other innovative things. We're going to do an experimental project out on Longview Road, if you're familiar with that, that cuts around the airport there. We have a piece of that that's deteriorated. And it's going to be what we call I can't think of the name right now, revitalization stabilization project, where we mill up the existing base course and asphalt, add a cement or lime product to it, and then just compact it back, and it'll get hard, and then a year from now we'll follow on with what a blotter is. We did a traffic count on there's only 300 cars a day, but we're doing that as an experimental project to try to find, you know, innovative, newer, faster ways to do projects. How about that?
Sounds good. Thank you. Now, I apologize. I have one more that I just thought of. Campbell Street overpass down as it heads to Highway 79.
Excellent question. Thank you for that. So there was a Campbell Street structure study that was done a few years ago that identified what would be done to reconstruct that structure. But as part of that study, one of the concepts that came up was the possibility of relocating the rail yard that exists along Campbell Street. And so I'm currently in the process of researching that and writing a request for proposals for a study to determine what would be required to relocate that rail yard, because in part of the study, we determined it might be more efficient for the city to use, instead of using that money to reconstruct the overpass, how about we move the rail yard out of there so we don't need to have an overpass in the future? And so that's something we'll be looking at over the next year or two and trying to get that. I'm actually about to start writing that request for proposals. I was working on it yesterday.
And Kip needs to mention the grant we just got this week, too.
Oh, I know.
Yes, so yeah, that's other big news. City applied for and was awarded a RAISE grant, which is Rebuilding America's Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. Well, pulled that out of nowhere. It's a competitive grant program from the U.S. Department of Transportation. There were something like $13 billion in grant applications submitted. Only $1.8 billion were awarded, and Rapid City was part of that. So we received $1.1 million to expand upon our railroad quiet zone study that we did in 2018. And this will take a look at improving railroad crossing safety throughout the downtown area, starting at Maple Avenue on the east and going through 11th Street on the west. And this is not specifically to institute a quiet zone, but what this will do is give us the recommended improvements that we need to do to increase the safety of all those crossings, which is good regardless if we get the quiet zone or not. But once those infrastructure improvements are in place, that would set us up to apply for a quiet zone in the future. So stay tuned to that. We just received that grant, and we just found out about it, last week, 2 weeks ago?
Last week.
Yeah, last week. So we're in the process of figuring out how we need to move forward with that because we've never received one of these grants before. So that was a very, very good collaborative effort between Public Works and Engineering, Community Development, and obviously our grants division, who did a fantastic job writing that grant application, obviously, so that we were able to be awarded those grant funds.
Yeah, congratulations on that. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, so I mean, between that and the Safe Streets and Roads for All, that's $1.3 million in funding that we have received just in the last few months in grant funding, which obviously in our city budget is tight. And the best thing about the RAISE grant is there's no local match required, so it's 100% federal funds, so none of that money comes out of our city budget.
That's great. Haven?
Thank you. I'm familiar with Longview as it loops around the north side of the airport. And how is the city involved in the improvement of that stretch of road?
Well, it goes back to that piece of Longview. There's a county portion, and then there's the part that runs through the city boundary, and that's our portion. And when the airport expanded their boundary and for their safe zones, that the county turned that over to us. So, but it'll be interesting.
All right. Any other questions for Kip or Roger? I think this is a acknowledgement. All right. Karen made the motion to acknowledge the draft report.
Second.
Vince seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And that's the end of our regular agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn? All right.
And I'll second it.
Karen made the motion to adjourn. Vince seconded it. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
All right. Yeah, people go, I gotta get out of here. Got a doctor's
Yeah.
appointment. Let's see you
Good
guys.
luck.
Good job. Thanks.
Interesting.